Perry Stone's YouTube channel, you have now tuned in. Thank you so much around the world. Hundreds of thousands of people actually that watch our videos. Thank you for that. I'm squinting a little bit because the sun is right in my eyes, but we wanted to get a good shot of where I'm at. I'm in the Kidron Valley. Now there's a gate here. It's a little hard to see through the iron. Can't do anything about that. But this valley between the Mount of Olives on the right and the Wall of Jerusalem on the east side of the city on the left is called the Kidron Valley, mentioned in the New Testament, of course, where Jesus crossed the Kidron Brook when he was coming into the Garden of Gethsemane. Up on the wall is the famous Eastern Gate. As you can tell, that particular gate is sealed. There's a gate that was discovered by a man named Fleming by accident when he was walking in front of the Eastern Gate many years ago, and the ground collapsed and he fell into a hole, and there he saw an arch gate underneath that particular gate, and the arch gate underneath it is believed to be the gate from Jesus' time. I've been told and have seen drawings of this that in the Roman time there was a ramp. It was 3 tiers high that went from that gate all the way to the Mount of Olives. Obviously that kept people from going into this valley and walking up the hill, and that is where the man in Acts chapter 3 who was lame at the gate called Beautiful was laid when Peter and John walked across that ramp, and he was cured. And it was called Beautiful. There's nothing really beautiful about it. It's nice, it's pretty, it's a story. But in the day, the gate under that gate had doors, and it had Corinthian bronze on it, and when the sun would shine, it would almost blind you. It would look like gold, because Corinthian bronze, when it was polished, could almost have an appearance of gold from a distance. Now, the miracle of the Eastern Gate goes back to the time of 1917 and also 1967. One of the interesting things is this, that in 1917, British General Edmund Allenby had his expeditionary forces coming from Egypt through the desert, and they were going to take what was called then Palestine and put it under the British mandate, British occupation, British mandate. And this gate was sealed. We're not sure when. Some say it was sealed by the Muslims to keep the Jewish Messiah from coming in. There's all sorts of stories, but we do know, let's just say bottom line, that gate has been closed, that gate has been sealed. So the British were coming in, and as a result of that, there was a discussion made about opening the gate, sealing off the other gates to the British, and therefore they would have to fight this direction, which would be very difficult. There was a man who was a British airman, and he was reading, he was actually in a church service listening to his minister preach from the book of Isaiah, where there's a very strange prophecy that says, "So as birds flying, so the Lord of hosts will defend Jerusalem. Passing over, he will preserve it." He came up with the idea of airplanes, and airplanes were very early, very young back in that day of 1917, but there were some that existed, of course. So they printed up leaflets in the Turkish language, and they flew over the city of Jerusalem. This is back in 1917, based on that prophecy, and they dropped the leaflets inside the city. Well, when the Turks read it, it told them to surrender Jerusalem, and then it was signed by Allenby. General Allenby was the head of the forces that would liberate, I should say, take this area from the Turks eventually. They read it, Allah Nebi. Allah is God, Nabi is the word prophet in their language. And so they surrendered the city of Jerusalem, and Allenby marched into the city and walked into the city. He rode on a white horse and stepped off of that, and walked to the city. So the gate was preserved and remained closed. The second time it was almost open was around the timing of the Six-Day War of 1967. All this territory was the country of Jordan. It was not Israel. And the Jordanians controlled, of course, the Temple Mount area where the dome sits, but they also controlled the Eastern Gate. The Mount of Olives was the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan. When the Israeli troops, when the war started, they believed that the Israelis were going to try to take Jerusalem back and unite the city east and west under Israeli control. Of course, the Jews had the western side. They did not have this side, which is the eastern side. So there was a crane. This had already been planned, but there was a crane being prepared to remove the large stones from the back of that gate and to eventually open it, because King Hussein had an idea that he was going to build a 5-star hotel and use what is today the Western Wall as the interior of the hotel. So they moved some of the Jewish refugees out from that particular area. So the idea was to open the gate and eventually build a platform again that would come so that people could come into that area. They could come into the area of the Temple Mount to where they could worship with an open gate. Before the gate was able to be opened in pre-1967 war, the war broke out. On the third day of the war, the Israeli paratroopers came in, went through the St. Stephen's Gate, which is the only other gate on the east side, and recaptured the city. The Western Wall was filled with tens of thousands of people, eventually hundreds of thousands of people, crying and worshiping. Shalom Agorim blew the shofar, announcing the liberation of Jerusalem, and also announcing the Messianic era had begun. So the gate remained closed. Now the reason it's important to understand that twice the gate could have been open, but the gate remained closed, was a scripture in Ezekiel where he describes Jerusalem. He said, the gate facing east is shut. It shall remain shut. It is for the prince. He has entered in by it. So in other words, the prince would be the Prince of Peace, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. When did the Lord enter the gate? And the answer is in the New Testament, when on what we call Palm Sunday, when the people were waving palm branches saying, Hosanna to the Son of David, they would have been standing on that ramp coming into a gate that was opened in that day. So the Lord had gone into the gate. Now the gate is shut, and the gate remains shut until the Prince returns. When Jesus returns on the Mount of Olives, which is directly in front of this gate in this direction, when he returns, then the Mountain of Olives will split in two parts, one part to the east, one part to the west, and this whole landmass is going to be completely changed, and there'll be a massive brand new temple that's going to be built in the millennial reign. And that is an entire another teaching that we do not have time to get into. So beautiful day in Jerusalem here on our YouTube channel. We appreciate you joining us. Sometimes we tape with our group. A lot of times we go a little bit off the beaten path where we can take time. It's early morning, so not a lot of people are out here yet. Normally it's buzzing, the horns are honking, dogs are barking, and there's a lot of noise here. So I wanted to share this with you. Now, it's very important for us that you subscribe to the channel. It does not cost to subscribe. When you say subscribe, people think it's costing. It does not. Number two, it is also important that you give it a thumbs up. Number three, every time you watch a YouTube video, don't just cut it off and click it off when I end the teaching. There's usually a little spot that comes on, and then we share some ministry things with you at the very end. Watch it all the way through, okay? And also remember perrystone.org, Perry Stone Ministries Facebook page, and we use a lot of social media now to reach more people than we've ever reached before. Thank you for joining from the city of Jerusalem in this special Holy Land teaching. Now you can hear the latest word on the last days that reveals details of where we are now and what and where major events will happen in the near future from the world's leading prophetic teachers. The 2023 Prophetic Summit is now available to everyone on 13 CDs or on 13 DVDs, and also available on an audio flash drive. Here are the speakers and their messages. Jonathan Cahn explained how the demon gods have returned. Lance Wallnau used a whiteboard and taught, this is about to change everything. And also the eye-opening message, heaven is about to do an earth invasion. Mark Biltz used Hebrew charts and pictures to illustrate his messages, called Connecting the Dots, and one called The Stunning Harbingers of Things to Come. Bill Cloud, a master of Hebrew, taught on the spirit of prophecy and the spirit of idolatry. He also revealed the secret of repairing the breach. Jimmy Evans took us on a fascinating journey from the 1800s to this present age, explaining the timeline of prophetic events. Now here's what I did. I used numerous scriptures and pictures to illustrate these 5 messages. Something I have missed concerning the pre-tribulation rapture. The next message was called The Secret of the Wedding and the Marriage of the King. You will also hear in this series the fascinating revelation from the book of Daniel called The Future Millennial Events and the First 75 Days when Jesus rules on earth. You will also discover amazing details when Christ returns to earth in the message, White Lightning, the King Messiah, and his battle map. In my 5th message, discover the 4 biggest things that will happen just before the rapture of the church. Now you will enjoy 13 hours, imagine that, 13 hours of dynamic prophetic teaching that will leave you encouraged, excited, and informed about the last days. The CD album is $65, and the offer number for that is 23PS-CD. The DVD album is $95, and that offer number is 23PS-DVD. Now, the DVDs will have all the pictures and the PowerPoints and the scriptures that were on the screens. Don't forget that. The audio flash drive is also available for $65 by requesting it and using offer number 23PS-USB. You can call toll-free at 1-888-21-BREAD or order online at our website at perrystone.org, or send the offer number and send us a note with the check to Perry Stone Ministries, P.O. Box 3595, Cleveland, Tennessee 37320. I can guarantee you this. This is going to be the best prophetic series in the 47-year history of our ministry. You will be prepared, you will be informed, you will know the times and seasons, and you will know what to do. So go ahead and order the 13 CDs or the DVD album or the 13 messages that are on the audio flash drive, and do it today. God bless you.
If you enjoyed this YouTube content, there's an important website you should know about: perrystone.org. Perrystone.org is an essential resource for the latest books, audiovisual presentations, and digital products from Perry Stone Ministries. Resources that cover the same kinds of topics discussed in the program you just watched. Stop in and see all that's available at perrystone.org.